Welcome again to this week's Ref Show. Big games, big performances, an analysis of what went right and why it went right in so many of the big games over the weekend. We've got Glenn Turner and we've got Mark Halsey. I was going to say big performances and big shirts, but his threat, Glenn's threat to wear a Hawaiian shirt has not prevailed.
Next
Good.
time,
Well,
Simon Jackson, next time.
Well, so this is for Simon Jackson.
Yeah.
He sent me a tweet yesterday and told me I must not let Glenn wear his Spirate shirt, the Chesterfield shirt.
I was happy with that.
So I know it's two on to one, but so Simon, he had it on outside. I've made him take it off. So
Very neutral, as we always are in the studio.
we used to, when it's concerning Chesterfield.
Well, you don't have to be neutral where Chesterfield is concerned. Thanks to Simon Jackson. Keep the comments coming, by the way, especially the jokey ones. Champions League final. We're going to go to the playoffs in a moment in this section as well. Atletico Madrid won, Real Madrid won, decided on penalties. A long night for Mark Clattenburg. And you, Glenn, were on ref cam extolling his performance.
Absolute pleasure. Sometimes, you have to say things on there that really you feel a bit awkward saying, but that's what we're there to report, what we see in front of us. It was an absolute pleasure to be on that game. Mark was outstanding.
Tell us why he was outstanding.
I think he, from the moment he first came out of the tunnel, I saw a completely different Mark Clattenburg to the one I'd seen the previous Saturday. He looked relaxed, he looked comfortable in that environment. It looked like he felt people wanted him there, and I think that's the big difference.
So you're saying that's the big difference between the demeanour he had before the FA Cup final, the nerves that were referred to in this studio this week. Is that the key to this different performance?
Listen, I've been on this show many times, and it's so important about managing men, managing your team, managing players, and it's no different to referees.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to touch on what Glenn said. I've got to say that is the best ever I've seen as in a referee's performance at that level. I thought it was absolutely. It's better than outstanding. And you look at to me, Glenn's absolutely right. He's given the confidence by Kalina. Kalina most probably sat him down the night before and most probably gone through the game plan and said to Mark, "Listen, you've got to find a balance." And he found that balance. And for me, he came out and the first 10 minutes was so important. Why is it so important? Because he got all the little free kicks, he got all the little decisions correct. That gains the respect of the players, that gains the trust from the players. He didn't go running in, brandishing a yellow card for that first challenge, that high foot challenge. His body language, his whole demeanour was absolutely fantastic. His recognition of foul, non-foul, his recognition of careless, reckless. He got the big decision right, the penalty. Okay, yes, I know you were fairly critical of Simon Beck, and you're absolutely spot on because it was offside, and he has had a poor season regarding his offside. But I sent Glenn a message, and listen, I'm not an assistant referee. He was the best. I was the referee. That's why I was in the middle. And I just felt perhaps it was a tough call because there were so many bodies. It was marginal.
I get frustrated by this because, and I think I said it on the night, if I remember. Lining is not that difficult. It's not, honestly. As long as you're in line to make the decisions. Yeah. Life can be so much easier. It becomes very difficult when you're not in line.
He says lining's not that difficult. Maybe that explains a lot then.
In line? You were never in line with me.
No, that was a good guess.
Especially with Kelvin Morton. You were chasing him up into the changing room. But no,
I'm not sure which direction we're going in.
He's absolutely spot on. And he wasn't in line, was he? He wasn't in line.
The crux of running the line well is being in line to make the decision. If you're there, you've got more than a fighting chance of calling it correctly.
Play acting. This is what stood out for me. Pepe of Real Madrid in particular, and the reaction, the referee not being
fantastically well.
And that's what
fantastically well. He put it all back onto the player with his body language. It was Kalina-esque really, the way Kalina used to just look at players. Mark did it when you're just making yourself look silly. Get up.
And that's what I say about his body language. And I think had Mark not already cautioned Pepe, he would have definitely showed him a yellow card for that. But you know, you're not going to send a player off on a
Great
second
awareness.
yellow.
I've already cautioned
absolutely.
this kid. I've got to deal with it though.
Yeah.
How do I deal
Deal
with
with
it? That's the best way.
Get up.
Put it back onto
Yeah.
it.
It would seem,
Fantastic.
you know, and this is positive as well, that there was great appreciation from the top. Pierluigi Collina, the UEFA referee's boss, the FIFA president Infantino was there as well. Did you get the feeling that?
Yeah, I mean, I watched it, and I was nervous as well because you know, Mark's a very good friend of mine, and we're very close, and we talk quite often. And I was watching it, and when he went up there to collect his medal, you can clearly see Infantino, the president of FIFA, bend over, put his arm around him, and most probably telling him, "I need you for 2018." And I bet that's what he said.
He does.
And he does.
And I know you're a
He
very
does.
good lip reader. You're a very good lip reader indeed. So
Well,
we can assume that is what was
Yeah,
said.
we can, and yeah, you can assume that's what he said. But also, we go back on to managing your men, managing your players. You know, I reckon that Collina would have been down the bottom of that tunnel, waiting for Mark and putting his arm
We are
around him.
no different to players.
Yes,
We need
no.
sending out in the correct frame of mind. And as I said, it looked like Mark had been sent out in the correct frame of mind. Now roll back 7 days, and that looked different. I wonder what had been said to Mark pre-match at the FA Cup final, because it didn't look the same Mark Clattenburg that I've known for years and years and years.
And Glenn's absolutely right. You know, we all need a little bit of loving.
Of course we do.
Collina gave
Appreciation.
appreciation. Collina gave Mark that bit of loving. Do you think he gets that from the FA and the PGML? No chance, no chance. But speaking to Mark yesterday and today, he was absolutely physically and mentally shattered.
I think he was.
Absolutely, and he stayed over for an extra day in
Just
Milan.
like the players.
Just like the
He
players.
left it all out there on
Absolutely.
the field of play, didn't he?
And I've always said, you know, I've always said to people, you always do your talking on the pitch, not off it. And I never used to do anything like that. I used to hopefully do my talking on the pitch.
You did plenty of talking on the
pitch.
Most of it in my ears.
You say he's mentally and physically shattered, which he would be after a long season and two monumental matches back to back.
yes.
But he's got so little recovery time between now and the Euros.
The Euros,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, people look at. I mean, I think he come in for a lot of unfair criticism. All right, during the FA Cup final. Now, to me, you know, I thought he had a really good game in the FA Cup final. I really did. All right, you can look back at that advantage. Yeah. I mean, he blew his whistle, everybody stopped. Okay, but he done exactly the same thing in the Champions League in the second half when the Atletico player was away.
You would have played advantage on both those in that first half, wouldn't you?
I never blew my
fair?
whistle, did I?
He very rarely called any fouls. I understand.
But as I say, brilliant performance, absolutely.
I
brilliant.
don't know a current English referee who could have put in that performance other than Mark Clattenburg. He is so far way and above anything else we've got.
I've got to go one step further. I don't think there's any referee in the world that would have put in that performance.
Okay, this augurs well for the Euros, and well, he could referee the final, assuming England aren't there, of course.
And just quickly, within this country, I want to start seeing that the powers to be showing the respect to Mark that he deserves.
I'll tell you what, they'd miss him if he wasn't here. They're good.
We're moving on with the playoffs, the big and some big match performances as well at Wembley over the weekend in both the Championship and League One playoff finals. We'll be reviewing those with Glenn and with Mark. But just ahead of that, it's your chance to be a star by answering this week's You Are the Ref teaser. Question normally set by Keith Hackett based on the famous iconic comic strip and of course brilliantly illustrated by Paul Trevelyan. See how you get on with this one, and we'll see you after the break. A keeper is struggling to put his glove back on after being treated for injury, so his physio steps back onto the pitch to help. But at that moment, a goal-bound shot flies in, and the physio, furious that you restarted before the keeper was ready, deliberately deflects it wide. What now?